You are not hearing this message by accident. God orchestrated this moment. I want you to stop whatever you're doing and listen to me, not with your ears, but with your soul. You didn't just scroll here. You didn't just stumble across this. You're not watching this by coincidence. That screen lighting up, that voice reaching your ears, that pressure building in your chest, that's divine orchestration. That's heaven tapping your shoulder and saying, "Child, pay attention." Because this message, it carries weight, it carries urgency, it carries God's fingerprints. God has a habit of showing up when we least expect him. He steps into ordinary moments with extraordinary purpose. And he does it in ways we can't predict, through voices we didn't plan to hear, in places we never thought to look. That's what this is. This is one of those moments. Not planned by man, not scheduled by algorithms, but written in the heavens before you were born. Some of you have been walking around numb. You feel disconnected, not just from the world, but from yourself, from your purpose, from God. And you've been asking quietly, "Lord, where are you?" You've been searching the skies, scrolling your screen, pacing in your room late at night, asking questions that go deeper than your words. Well, here's your answer, right now, right here. God is not just near, he's speaking. He's shaking the atmosphere around you because you've been too quiet for too long. And he's saying, "My child, I see you. I know you. And I have not forgotten you." There's a reason the timing feels divine. Because it is. God doesn't move without purpose. He doesn't send messages without mission. He doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night for nothing. There's a call on your life that hell has been trying to silence. But guess what? Heaven said no. Heaven said, "Not today." Heaven said, "I've marked them for more." That's you. You've been marked for more, not more fame. Not more money, but more meaning, more depth, more presence, more power in your steps because you know who's walking with you. Some people live their whole life brushing off messages like this. They say that's for somebody else. But if your heart is beating faster right now, if your thoughts are racing, if you feel like this is calling your name, then stop running. This one's for you. This message is heaven pulling the curtain back and saying, "See, I'm still here. I'm still in control, and I'm still calling you home." You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not a mistake. You are chosen. And I know the world told you otherwise. I know people may have left, ignored you, abused your trust, wounded your spirit. But the God who formed your soul in eternity, he never took his eyes off you. And tonight, he's reminding you of your worth, not because you earned it, but because he placed it in you. Don't turn this off and pretend it didn't stir something. Don't close this window and return to sleepwalking through life. And which way you turn next will change everything. This is not just motivation. This is revelation. And it's coming straight from the throne room of grace to the doorstep of your soul. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it? Because the most dangerous thing you can do is ignore a message sent by God. But you need to understand how this powerful shift works, so you can fully embrace the manifestation of your desires. Before we dive into this life-changing message, take a moment to pause, hit that like button, subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers, and leave a comment with the number 77. This number holds immense power and will amplify the energy of this message. And remember, if you are truly a chosen one, you'll watch this video until the end. Your spirit already knows this is for you. If you're ready, then get ready, because ignoring the signs is more dangerous than not seeing them. It's one thing to be blind, to walk through life unaware of what's really going on in the spiritual realm. But it's another thing, a deeper tragedy, to have the signs in front of you and still pretend they don't matter. You see, God doesn't just speak in thunder and fire. Sometimes he speaks in silence, in stillness, in subtle shifts, in patterns that repeat over and over again in your life, not to punish you, but to wake you up. You ever wonder why the same struggle keeps showing up? Different faces, same betrayal. New opportunity, same anxiety, another day but the same battle. That's not random, that's not coincidence. That's a message you've been ignoring. And the longer you ignore it, the louder life starts to speak. until you have no choice but to face what you've been running from. Ignoring the signs doesn't make the problem go away. It just gives it time to grow stronger in the dark, and the enemy knows that. That's why he doesn't always come at you with noise. Sometimes he just convinces you that the warnings are irrelevant, that the red flags aren't really red, that the dreams you've been having are just your imagination, that the gut feeling you keep brushing off is just anxiety. No, it's not. That's your spirit sounding the alarm. That's divine alert. And when God starts sending those messages, you better believe there's something on the line. Let me tell you something about how God operates. He's merciful, he's patient, but he's not going to let you stay blind forever. He will shake your world, flip your plans, interrupt your comfort, and let things fall apart. Not because he wants to break you, but because he's trying to wake you. And when you keep ignoring the signs, you're not just delaying your destiny. You're gambling with your peace, your calling, and your very soul. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been seeing the same number over and over again, hearing the same words in different places, feeling the same tug in your heart every time you try to force something that's not meant for you. That's not random, that's spiritual alignment. That's heaven putting up billboards in your path saying, "Turn around, choose differently, listen now." Because every time you ignore the sign, you give permission to the storm. Every time you close your eyes to the truth, you give more room to the lie. And every time you push away the nudge from God, you distance yourself from the very thing you've been praying for. That breakthrough you want, it's already been sent. But it requires your attention. It requires your obedience. It requires that you stop pretending you don't see what's obvious in the spirit. You were never meant to live life asleep at the wheel. God gave you discernment for a reason. That intuition, that deep knowing in your gut. That's not weakness, that's your weapon. And you need to use it now more than ever. Because if you keep ignoring what God is trying to show you, eventually, you'll crash into what he was trying to protect you from. And the question is, how many warnings do you need before you finally listen? The enemy's greatest weapon is your distraction. He's not always coming after your house, your health, or your job. No, sometimes his strategy is much quieter, much slicker. He comes after your focus. Because he knows if he can't destroy you, he can at least distract you long enough to delay what God has ordained for your life. You see, it doesn't take a fire to stop your destiny. It just takes enough noise to keep you from hearing God clearly. That's the battlefield most people never see. That's the trap we walk into without even realizing it. Think about how many hours you've lost, scrolling through things that don't feed your spirit. How many mornings you've woken up and reached for your phone before you reached for God. How many conversations you've entertained that drained you instead of built you. That wasn't by accident. That was design. The enemy studies you. He watches what moves you, what tempts you, what makes you restless. And he weaves distractions into the fabric of your everyday life, so subtle you don't even notice it happening. And before you know it, you're off track. Not off track because you chose sin. Off track because you chose comfort. You chose noise. You chose to fill your days with things that felt urgent but weren't important. You filled the sacred space of your mind with junk food for your soul. So when God tried to whisper, you couldn't hear him through the chaos. And that's exactly what the enemy wanted. He doesn't need you to worship him. He just needs you to stop paying attention to the one who saved you. And once he's got your focus, everything else falls apart. You start missing appointments God scheduled for you in the spirit. You start walking through doors he never told you to open. You start following timelines that weren't written for you, all because you got distracted. Some of you are wondering why things feel out of alignment, why nothing seems to click anymore, why your peace feels thin and your purpose feels distant. But if you trace it back, you'll see the moment you let go of discipline, the moment you stopped guarding your time, the moment you stopped protecting your energy, the moment you got distracted, that's when the shift happened. The enemy doesn't want your destruction to be obvious. He wants it to be slow, silent, comfortable. That way you don't resist it. That way you don't even notice you're drifting. He'll let you keep singing, keep working, keep showing up. As long as your mind is somewhere else. As long as your heart is numb. As long as your attention is divided. Because divided focus is defeated purpose. But it's not too late to fight back. Not with fists, but with focus. Not with anger, but with alignment. Not by doing more, but by being still and asking God, where did I lose sight of you? Because once you get your focus back, the enemy loses his grip. Once you tune out the noise and tune into God's voice, everything changes. Clarity returns, strength returns, purpose becomes sharp again. You were created with intention, and you've got no business living distracted. Your calling is too great. Your anointing is too rare. Your time is too short. Your time is too short. Don't let temporary noise rob you of eternal purpose. The enemy may be clever, but he's not unstoppable. The moment you turn your focus back to God, he loses his power over your path. And if you want to win this battle, you don't need to do more, you just need to pay attention. God is speaking through the silence, the storm, and your sleepless nights. You may think he's gone quiet. You may feel like the heavens are shut tight, like your prayers are hitting the ceiling and falling back on your shoulders. But what you don't see is that God hasn't gone silent. He's just speaking in a different frequency. And if you've been feeling alone lately, if you've been lying awake wondering why everything's gone quiet, maybe it's not distance. Maybe it's sacred space. Maybe God's pulling you in closer, not with words, but with weight. See, we've been trained to think that if God isn't talking the way we want him to, then he must not be talking at all. But that's not how the Spirit works. Sometimes God doesn't show up in fire or earthquake. Sometimes he whispers through silence. Sometimes he speaks in pauses. And other times he shouts through the storm. And if you're not tuned in, if your soul isn't still, you'll miss it. Because his language isn't always loud, it's deep. You ever sit in the middle of a storm and wonder why you feel so confused, so shaken? That's the place where most people think God has abandoned them. But the truth is, storms don't come to separate you from God. They come to separate everything else that's been getting in the way. They strip the surface so you can hear the soul. They reveal what's real and what's just noise. In the chaos, in the winds, in the breakings, God is clearing the air. Not to harm you, but to get your attention. And then there are the sleepless nights. You know the ones where you turn from one side to the other, mind racing, heart heavy, eyes tired but soul wide awake. That's not just restlessness, that's revelation. God sometimes visits in the midnight hour because the noise of the day is finally gone. It's in those quiet hours that he places thoughts in your spirit, downloads clarity, reveals things you've been too busy to see. And while you're begging for sleep, heaven is trying to speak. You keep asking for answers, but God's already answering. Just not in the way you expected, not in the way that fits your timeline or your comfort zone. See, he's not a performer, he's a father. He doesn't owe you thunder to prove he's near. Sometimes his greatest messages are wrapped in silence, tucked between the moments when everything else falls away. You've been praying for a word, but what if the silence is the word? What if God is saying, wait, watch, trust? What if the storm is your purification, not your punishment? What if the sleepless nights are a sacred invitation to sit with the Creator without distraction? You think you need another sign, but you already have the sign. It's the unrest in your spirit. It's the weight in your chest. It's the tears you cried without knowing why. That's God. That's how he shows up when he's getting ready to shift your entire life. Don't let the silence fool you. Don't let the storm shake your faith. And don't let the sleepless nights drive you into despair. That's the very ground where breakthrough begins. That's where intimacy is forged. That's where your spiritual ears open. That's where heaven writes things that only your heart can read. So the next time you sit in silence, feel the wind rage, or lay awake at 3 a.m., don't ask God, where are you? Ask instead, God, what are you saying? Because he's been speaking all along. You just have to learn how to listen differently. And if you listen with your spirit, not just your ears, you'll realize he never stops speaking. He was just waiting for you to get still enough to hear him. What you tolerate today could destroy you tomorrow. There are things in your life right now that you've been letting slide. Habits, relationships, thoughts, environments, things that feel small, things that seem manageable. You tell yourself, it's not that serious, it's under control. I can handle it. But what you don't realize is that what you're tolerating is taking root. It's growing in the background. And anything that grows in the dark eventually shows up in the light. Not as something harmless, but as something that has the power to shake your foundation. You can't build a blessed life on top of broken patterns. You can't expect peace to reign in a place where compromise rules. See, the enemy doesn't need you to fall in one big moment. He just needs you to let little things slide over time. He just needs you to tolerate a little bitterness here, a little pride there, a little sin you excuse because it helps you cope. And before you know it, that little thing has built a fortress around your heart, blocking out the very blessings you've been praying for. Tolerating what God told you to release is disobedience in disguise, and disobedience, even dressed in good intentions, still leads to destruction. That conversation you keep having, even though you know it's toxic, that relationship you refuse to end because you're afraid of being alone, that habit you entertain because it helps you escape but leaves your soul in chains. That's not freedom, that's a slow decay. And if you're not careful, it won't just delay your destiny. It will derail it completely. Sometimes we make peace with what's killing us, simply because it doesn't hurt yet. But the absence of pain doesn't mean the presence of peace. Just because it hasn't exploded doesn't mean it's safe. The enemy is patient. He'll let you keep playing with fire just long enough for you to forget it burns. He'll let you sit in the slow leak until the whole ship sinks. And by the time you notice what you've lost, the damage has already been done. This is your wake-up call. You can't keep making excuses for what God already convicted you about. You can't keep dressing dysfunction in language that sounds like love. You can't keep ignoring the cost of your compromises. Because what you accept now is what you will live with later. And some of you are carrying weight you were never built to carry. All because you tolerated something God told you to let go of. And I get it. Letting go is hard. Drawing boundaries is hard. Saying no when you're used to saying yes is hard. But the pain of discipline is always lighter than the pain of regret. God isn't asking you to let go because He wants to hurt you. He's asking you to let go because He wants to heal you. He's trying to protect the version of you that hasn't even been revealed yet. But that version can't be birthed in a place where you keep compromising your character just to keep things calm. You're not called to a calm life. You're called to a clean one. You're called to be holy, not comfortable. And the path to holiness means confronting what's quietly killing your purpose. It means being bold enough to say, I refuse to tolerate what's trying to steal my future. Don't wait for destruction to make you change. Choose discipline now, before regret becomes your teacher. Because the longer you tolerate what's toxic, the harder it becomes to recognize what's truth. And if you're serious about becoming who God called you to be, you've got to stop settling for what He never sent. Urgency is God's love in motion. He warns before He judges. There's a reason this message feels heavy. A reason your heart is beating faster right now. A reason you feel like God is pulling on your spirit, like something inside you just woke up. That's not fear. That's not anxiety. That's divine urgency. That's heaven's way of saying, move now, shift now. Listen now, because God, in His mercy, always gives a warning before He brings judgment. He never lets destruction come without first sending a message. You see, urgency isn't anger. It's love. It's grace on fire. It's God shouting over the noise of your life, saying, I love you too much to let you stay asleep. When God sends urgency, it's because the window is closing, the season is shifting, the opportunity is passing, and He's trying to wake you up before you miss what's been prepared for you. We live in a world that dulls urgency. We've become desensitized to conviction, desensitized to consequences, desensitized to divine timing. We think we have forever, We think we can deal with God later, that we can obey when it's more convenient. But listen to me. Delay is not neutral. Delay is disobedience in slow motion. The longer you ignore the nudge, the further you drift from your destiny. God's urgency is not panic. It's precision. It's Him aligning heaven's clock with your soul. And when He starts moving quickly, it's because something has shifted in the spirit. Something is coming. And if you're not prepared, if you're not in position, you will miss it. Some doors don't stay open forever. Some moments don't repeat themselves. Some instructions come with expiration dates. And if you think you have time, you'll treat a warning like a suggestion. But God is not suggesting anything right now. He's commanding a response. The warning is the gift. The urgency is the opportunity. And if you ignore it, you're not just risking discomfort. You're risking alignment. You're risking divine protection. You're risking purpose. Because when judgment comes, it's not always fire and brimstone. Sometimes judgment is simply being left to the consequences of what you refuse to confront. God's judgment is never without justice, and His justice is always rooted in love. But love doesn't always come wrapped in softness. Sometimes love comes wrapped in thunder, in sharp turns, in messages that shake your routine. And when you feel that urgency in your bones, it means heaven is near. It means God is giving you one more chance to course correct, to repent, to step back into position. Some of you are at a crossroads right now, and you've been feeling it, the tension, the pull, the unrest in your spirit. That's the Spirit of God trying to guide you before the pressure gets worse. That's Him saying, I'd rather interrupt your comfort now than watch your destruction later. Don't take that lightly. Don't treat the urgency of God like background noise. That feeling inside you right now, that's sacred. That's heaven fighting for you, one last time before the cost becomes irreversible. You may not get another message like this. You may not feel this pull again. So don't waste it, don't brush it off. Because urgency doesn't come when everything is fine. It comes when heaven knows time is running out. And when God says now, you better believe there's a reason He didn't say later. And if your spirit is hearing this clearly, then you already know. This is not the time to hesitate. It's the time to surrender.